Welcome to the NCRS Insider, bringing you into the NCRS world with your host, Steve Thazier.
Welcome back, everyone. Glad you could join us again. It's actually June 3rd, 2023, and we just returned from the Northeast Regional NCRS meet in Altoona, PA. I have to say there were some very impressive cars at the meet, and it got me excited to get the 1980 Corvette ready for the judging at our regional meet. So in today's episode, we're going to walk you through the journey I will take, or will have taken once this episode airs, to prepare the 1980 for the next round of judging a regional meet. Part 1 will be all the prep work that we do, and Part 2 will be the results of our efforts at the regional meet. Let's go. Our target event is the 2024 Regional in Marlborough, Massachusetts that occurs on May 31st through June 1st. Since you may have not met the 1980 yet, let me introduce you. We have a very nice little red coupe with an oyster interior. In my opinion, is one of the best color combinations that was available back in 1980. Although engine power was rather weak at the time, we do have the upgraded L82 engine putting out a whopping 230 horsepower. But what it is lacking in power, it makes up in style. Although some may say that the early chrome bumper C3s are more stylized as compared to the 1980 rubber bumper model, the extra curves, spoiler, and fastback window gives it a sporty look in my opinion. The Corvette is very original, mainly since it only has 29,000 miles. The engine bay and interior are mostly original. The exhaust system, except for the mufflers, are original, and it even has the original tires, although one does not hold air very well. We'll see if we can fix that. The body is the one area that is not perfect, since there are some gap issues in various areas of paint respray. Since the paint on the body was not original, I did paint the entire frame and chassis since the finish was not great. Not an easy chore with the body in place, but it did turn out well. It was first judged back in 2022 at the Adirondack Chapter meet in New York. It did well, scoring a 97.6. However, this was a chapter meet, and the judging is always more lenient at a chapter meet as compared to a regional. So today we will look at how I go about getting a car ready for a regional meet after having it judged at a chapter meet. I'm sure everyone has a different approach, but mine is very calculated. I will show you how I divide the process into 3 distinct phases and what we did along the way in each phase. The first phase is the planning process. In this phase, we analyze what the deductions were from the chapter meet and determine a plan for improvements, so hopefully we'll actually do better at the regional meet. The second phase is the procurement phase. Based on the planning we have done, we set out to find the parts and pieces that will get the car that much closer to being original. And the last phase is execution, where we get the new components purchased, installed, and do whatever work is necessary to reduce those deductions. So let's start by taking a deeper dive into each phase and what we will do along the way to make the 2024 regional meet a success. Here we go. The scoring sheets from our chapter meet are where we begin in the planning phase. Where are the deductions, and can we do something to improve upon them? Let's go through the deductions that were received during our chapter judging. In the operations category, the keys are actually looked at to make sure they are correct. We had 2 original keys and 2 replacement keys, so we received a 4-point deduction. That should be an easy fix. We knew the AC would not be working properly since there is no Freon in the system. We will need to find a shop that can handle R22 refrigerant and get the system filled. Not sure how much that will be, but we will do some investigation. That received a 5-point deduction, so if we can't get that fixed, it's not that critical. There is often a surprise or two when judging operations on a car, and our driver's side window suddenly not working was one of them. This was a 3-point deduction. Hopefully that may just be a loose wire, but we will need to do some investigation to determine this one. We were able to get the bonus points for the fire extinguisher and battery disconnect, but we never got the NCRS decal on the car. Another easy one. So total deductions for operations were 12 points, but we did receive the 6 bonus points. Starting with a score of 750, our total operation score was 744. Not bad, but we should easily be able to improve on that one. For the interior judging, we did quite well, with a number of small deductions here and there. There was a 1-point deduction for the carpet fit on the driver's side. It is the original carpet, so I'm not sure how much we can do, but we'll check it out. A number of things were noted that are not difficult to address, such as radio knobs upside down. However, I don't quite understand that one. There was a missing sill screw way up at the front, which was a surprise, and some scratches on the sills, so we received a 2-point deduction. We probably have a correct screw lying around. The steering column, shift knob, and door weather stripping each got a 1-point deduction for condition. We are not going to be replacing any of those. Had they been much bigger deductions, we might have considered doing something. We are missing some glove box items, so there was a 3-point deduction. It is amazing how expensive some of these things can be, so we will show you our price per point calculation to see if it is worth the investment to obtain. The brake pedal received a 1-point deduction on condition since it was loose. This one seems a little strange, but we will take a look at it. We received a 10-point deduction on the battery and a 1-point originality point on the hold-down clamp. The standard service replacement deductions were made for the battery, so we will need to live with that. The hold-down clamp, we will require some investigation. Another surprise was the missing knob on the windshield wiper. You need to look at the little things sometimes. Should be an easy fix to get that 1 point. We received a 22-point deduction on the interior, giving a score of 783. We should be able to improve on that a little. The exterior judging went quite well, with the exception of 2 things. The exterior incorrect body fit was a 26-point deduction, and incorrect headlamps had a 15-point deduction. I previously could not track down correct lamps, so I need to continue that search since they are some big points. The body fit could prove challenging. The biggest problem is the hood not fitting well. I had removed the hood while doing a mild restoration and could not get it to fit back in place well. Hopefully some more tinkering and probably some YouTube searches might get it a little bit better. Some additional problems exist that we won't be able to do anything about. There are some scratches in the rocker panels and the wiper inserts are not correct, which both received a 1-point deduction. We will see if we can get the correct wiper inserts. In total, there were 43 deductions made for a total score of 1,136 for the exterior. In the mechanical section, there were a number of small deductions for wear of different components, which totaled 7 points. With these small deductions, I tend to leave them as is, original to the car, rather than trying to find replacement parts. We do have some incorrect hose clamps that we will try and address. The air cleaner wing nut was not correct since thickness of the metal was too thin. Finding a correct one is not cheap, so we will live with a 1-point deduction. There was a 2-point deduction on the alternator for no label and an incorrect wire connector. I'm not sure what they mean by label. The broadcast codes are stamped on the side. I'm thinking they thought it should be in a different location. We will see what happens for the nut judging round. We did have a steel AC hose missing since it was difficult to put on without removing the radiator. The fan clutch received a 1-point deduction since it had slots instead of holes in the base. It is hard to believe it wouldn't be original, but I'm going to do some research on this one. Another 4 points were lost on some incorrect radiator hoses and clamps, as well as belts. We will try and get these addressed. 18 deductions were made in the mechanical section, so the result was a score of 1,102. Not too bad. The biggest issue in the chassis section was the exhaust system. The mufflers were totally incorrect and received a 6-point deduction. We should be able to source a more correct muffler, but to find an original or an exact reproduction would be a challenge. Also, the heat riser valve was missing. We do have it, but getting it on was problematic, but we will give that another try. The oil filter label was incorrect, and the oil pan was over-restored, meaning there was too much paint on it. Paint on the bottom of oil pans is very minimal. We can try and fix that. There is a 1-point deduction for missing the frame stencil. That would be impossible to add without removing the body, so we will live with that deduction. Other than additional 1-point condition deductions here and there, that was it for the chassis. There were 18 total deductions, giving a score of 628 for the chassis. So our overall score is 97.6, enough to get us a top flight award. Can we repeat this in a more challenging regional meet? We're going to give it a try. The next step in the planning phase is a well-prepared spreadsheet, which will be our roadmap to get us to the regional meet. We begin by noting the deductions that we received in each category that we think we can address. Then we indicate what needs to be done and how many points we think we can achieve by doing so. I like to indicate what the cost per point is. If we are spending $100 to get a single point, it may not be worth it. I look at how important or how visible are these types of fixes. Sometimes you can justify them and sometimes you can't. That is a personal preference that we all need to go through. By using the spreadsheet, we can see what the total cost of all our planned improvements will be to determine whether that makes sense for what we are trying to accomplish. In our case, the total budget comes out to be $1,128 for 65 points. That is not cheap, so next we look at cost per point. By taking the cost for a particular item and dividing it by the number of points to be gained gives us the cost per point. A general rule I have is $20 to $30 is the maximum I can get for a single point. There can be exceptions depending on the importance of the component. It's a tough judgment call on how much to spend. Next, we move into the procurement phase. From our spreadsheet, we have potentially 14 items to purchase if we decide to move forward with everything we need. The hunt begins. We did some hunting around in our spare bins of parts, and we found 3 items we needed. I did have the wiper switch knob and the master cylinder cover that I had previously bought and never installed. I also recently received a 50th anniversary NCRS decal, so that was a perfect addition. That is an easy 6 points we picked up. We also went through our extra screw container and we found a screw for the door sill. We are on a roll. I did some research on fan clutches today since mine was deemed incorrect since it had slots and not holes at the attachment point. That is indeed correct from 1960 to 1982. Given the cost per point, we are going to pass on this one. It's Thursday morning. We are heading down to Corvettes at Carlisle, one of my favorite Corvette events. Carlisle has all the parts that you need if you're looking for some things. We're specifically looking for a lot of 70 LT1 parts. We also need a few things for the 80 that we'll be searching for. So hopefully we'll have a good couple of days. Unfortunately for the 1980, we did not fare so well at Carlisle. Surprisingly, we did not find anything we were looking for. However, for the LT1, we made out quite well, finding a number of items at some great deals. We will need to keep up the hunt. We have been doing some searches for headlights on the internet. The high beam halogen bulbs are quite common, so we picked up 3 in case one does not work. They are quite old. The high beam, which are power beam, are not as common. We were able to find one at a very low price of $15. Others were well into the hundreds of dollars, so we might only have one to replace. We also looked into the wiper blades. The NCRS manual is quite vague on this item, and some additional research did not help much. There are a few different Trico wiper blades that will fit, but which one is correct, I am not sure. Continuing our parts quest today, I was surprised to find that oil filters with the correct label are quite common. We picked up one on eBay for only $22. Early in the week, we purchased key cores online and took them down to the local key store. Some quick cuts were done and we had 2 additional correct keys. We have done several searches for the missing glove box content. 1980 documents seem a little harder to find as compared to some, but the cost is no different. Very expensive. We will lose 3 points or so, but it's just not worth the expense at this point in time. I've been continuing to research mufflers that would be the most correct for the 80, and today, as I was browsing through eBay, I stumbled upon some OEM mufflers date-coded for August of '87. They are advertised as only having less than 500 miles on them. Everything appears to be correct with the W logo, that stands for Walker, the GM logo, and the correct part number. Even with the incorrect date code, dings, and some scratches, this is about as good as I'm going to get with the mufflers. So the muffler showed up today, which is great, but I had gotten a call from the owner saying the inside of the muffler must be rusting out since when you shake it, it rattles. Sure enough, it does, but I'm hoping that it does not affect the sound of the car. We will see. Since we only have 68 days until the big day, we need to get into the execution phase since the weather is getting much nicer. This phase is simple. Take care of any work that we had planned and install anything that we had purchased. Today we tackled getting the new mufflers on the car. It was a bit of a struggle getting the old ones off, but is complete and the car does not sound bad. They look great, and I was also able to get a reduction in the cost from the owner. Outstanding. Since we had the car on the lift, we also sanded off some of the paint on the bottom side of the oil pan and installed the missing heat riser valve. The valve installation was not as difficult as I thought. We looked at the carpet bulge and the loose gas panel. I'm not sure if anything can be done or if it even needs to be done. We will let the regional judges decide if there are any issues here. We finally got around to installing the missing AC pipe. This was not an easy task since a number of things had to be removed, including a partial removal of the radiator core. It was some work, but worth it. Today we dove into the problem with the window not operating. After taking the console apart to get to the window switch, we determined that everything was okay here. Next, we took the door panel off to test the electrical at the motor. Again, everything seems fine. We decided to use some lubricant on the window tracks. Sure enough, the window started working. It had some slight hesitation, but hopefully that will get us by. Since we only have 27 days until the regional event, it was time to go through all the operation items to check once again if everything was working okay. We did discover a slight hesitation in one of the headlights raising up. That may cost us a point or two, but does not look like we can do anything about that at this point. So the big day was finally here. We loaded everything up and set a course for Marlborough, Massachusetts. In our October 15th episode, we'll take a close look at how we did and see if we did do better at a regional meet as compared to the chapter event. See you then.